The Albin Counter Gambit is a very good way for black to try to win very quickly against d4. It starts out with d4, d5, c4, and e5. If white doesn't play the opening correctly, then he can fall into shambles very quickly. Let's first take a look at the Lasker trap. This is the most famous trap in Albin Counter Gambit. However, there are many other traps that exist. So it starts out with d takes c5, d4, this is all normal, and now white plays e3, a mistake. What's the best move for black here? The best move is bishop b4 check. And the point is, after bishop d2, you can actually take on e3, temporarily sacrificing a piece. If white takes a bishop, then you can take here. If king takes, then the queen is hanging. If white instead tries to hold on to the queen, see if you can find the best move for black. The best move is a pretty f takes g1 knight check. If you take on g1 with the queen, then white can stay in the game after queen takes d8, king takes d8, and then only then rook takes g1. It's very important that your promotion comes with check. Now after rook takes g1, which is almost forced, we can also look at king e1 in a second, but after rook takes g1, white can resign after bishop g4 as you win the queen and mate is coming very soon. If white ignores this and plays king e1, then white can respawn queen h4, king d2 for example, knight c6, a very strong move, bishop bishop c3, and what should black play? Well, there are many good moves. The simplest is bishop g4, and the idea is that the queen has to move to a really bad square. For example, after queen e1, you can castle queenside, king e3, queen g5, king f2, rook d1 for example, queen e4, bishop f5, queen e3, rook takes f1, because after king takes, there's queen takes e3. Black is forcefully winning in all variations here. After queen c1, which looks also natural, there's queen f2 check, and white is getting mated. If king d3, then bishop f5, and if bishop e2, then queen takes e2. What if white deviates earlier? Knight d2 has been played a couple of times, but I am fairly certain it runs into some problems after d takes e3. Let me make sure I get this right. I'm going to plug in an engine. Yes, d takes e3, f takes e3, and now queen h4. g3 best, but after queen e4, taking advantage of this pin, white's pawn structure is very silly. Got 3 pawn islands, and white's slightly tied down. For the time being, this pawn is already a weakness because it's being attacked to an extent. This is not very pleasant for white, although it is better than bishop d2. Let me turn engine off. In one game, white tried queen a4 here, but after knight c6, white took the bait with bishop takes b4. But this doesn't work. By playing queen a4, basically white's logic is that after taking on f2, there is, white can take on f2 because there's no queen to capture on d1 because it's on a4. So the idea for queen a4 is to evade this problem. However, black has a very strong reply, queen h4, and after g3, queen d4, king g2, queen takes b2, white can resign. Queen a4 itself was already a colossal blunder. If you're not convinced, then let's check the engine. -2, stockfish 10, going up to -3. Yes, because the king is a big problem. Okay. That pretty much sums up the Lasker trap. So after e3 you want to play bishop b4. And now white is rife with problems. One interesting idea for white is e4 here, actually, mitigating the issue of bishop b4 to an extent, because after bishop e4, black cannot take on e3 and do the Lasker combination. Here, I'm going to recommend knight c6. We can look at two moves here today, knight e2 and f4. Let's start with knight e2. We'll be following game Miller versus Peterson in London of 1959. Knight e2 is not a good move, but white is trying to avoid bishop g4. Bishop c5 was played in the game, but maybe other moves are good, like f6, or maybe even queen h4. It was bishop c5, and after knight d2, a mistake. Black played a mistake, knight takes e5. It's objectively a mistake, but from a human point of view, very dangerous. You're threatening knight d3. Knight b3 was played, blundering the whole game. What should black play? Bishop b4, our favorite move. Bishop d2, a colossal blunder, although white is already dead lost, right? Because of knight d3. Best is queen d2, but then you hang a queen. Or you can start with knight d3 first if you like, even. We can also look after e4, knight c6, look at f4. Vasilev versus Gusev. f4, f6, strong move. E takes f6, knight takes f6. Now black has open f-file and e-file, and he can use both. Very dangerous already for white. Bishop d3, bishop b4, our favorite motif. Bishop d2, castle, knight e2, knight g4, castle, queen h4, threatening h2, h3, bishop takes d2, and white made a mistake. Queen takes d2. Knight takes d2 is an improvement, but black is still better. After queen takes d2, there follows knight e3, and white messed up again with rook f3. It was better for white to leave the rook on f1 and play a move like queen e1, for example. But after rook f3, what should black play? Knight e5, brilliant move. White cannot take on e5 because there's some problems after take, and I think you can take on h3 or play queen g5. Maybe queen g5 simplest, and the king has to move to f2, but then that gets mated. So instead, it was rook g3, rook takes f4, and just constantly attacking the king. White played knight a3, and resigned after black's next move. What do you think black played? Black played bishop takes h3. Very nice move. And white can resign, because after rook takes h3, there follows, queen f2 very simply, and checkmate. Of course, white can make many improvements in the opening, but e4 in itself is not a very serious line. The more serious lines exist in knight f3 line. But first, I want to take a look at what if white declines Albin Counter Gambit. Even if white declines Albin Counter Gambit with a move like knight c3, there are ways for black to get a dangerous plan. D takes c4 is one idea. After d takes e5, you can take on d1. Knight takes d1, knight c6. So far, just very normal moves. Knight f3, bishop g4, bishop f4, and castle queenside. Knight e3, a colossal mistake, catastrophic. Bishop b4, our favorite move again, just killing white. And in fact, white resigned here, because knight d2, but then you hang a piece. White would be fine after a move like knight c3, and I believe the engine says it's slightly better for black. Okay, negative 0.7, 0.8 after h6, with idea bishop e6 after e3. Okay, right, h6 so that you can go bishop e6 without allowing knight g5. And black's a little better. Another idea for white is e3. Here you can take d4, and white can choose between e d4 and queen d4. Let's look at queen d4 first. There's a beautiful game here. Knight f6 was played, knight c3, knight c6, very alike the Trigorin. Queen d1, bishop f5, f3, the blunder. What did black play? Black played knight b4, queen a4 check, and black messed up with queen d7, although black still has a decisive advantage. c6 or knight d7 both offer a -5 advantage, where queen d7 only grants -1 plus advantage. So black's already in a great position. He just makes a technical error, queen d7. But the game is beautiful, and so I think we should look and see what happens. So queen d7, king d7, e4, mistake. D takes e4, f takes e4, knight takes e4, rook b1, stopping knight c2, knight c2 anyway, king d1, and now knight f2. Very nice combination is coming up very soon. King e2 and bishop c5, you can imagine, right? Yes, bishop c5, knight f3, and now mate coming in 2 moves. Bishop d3, king d2, and now bishop e3 checkmate. Very cute finish. Yes, very nice. Instead of f3, white can play preventative move like a3 to stop knight b4, but maybe you can try d4 here, or d takes c4, or yes, I think for black to choose between one of those two. Right, d4 or d takes c4 both offer black good chances. White can also take on d4 with the e-pawn. Black can play knight f6. So far, very normal position. Bishop g5, bishop e6, cd5, bishop d5, knight c3, knight c6, knight takes d5, a mistake. Logic is to win the bishop pair in a semi-open position with IQP, isolated queen's pawn, but after queen takes d5, black just has great prospects with his developed pieces and pressure on the pawn, and the king can activate the rook and everything. Here, white tried bishop takes f6, but this is a mistake because of our very favorite idea, bishop b4 check. Now the point is, after king e2, you can play queen e4, and that's checkmate. Instead, well, white is already in big trouble, I think, but after knight f3, he can still try to play on. Here, I would imagine bishop b4, right? And after bishop d2, you can probably castle queenside and play rook hg8. And this looks better for black. Okay, another move here instead of d e5 is c takes d5. Queen takes d5 I will recommend. D takes e5, and now queen takes d1, king takes d1, knight c6, f4, bishop f5, knight c3, castle queenside, bishop d2, f6, breaking the center, e4, bishop g4, bishop e2, bishop takes, knight takes, fe5, fe5, bishop c5, knight d5. What do you think black plays? Yes, knight takes e5, of course. Rook c1, some pressure on the c7, and now knight d3, rook c2, and knight f2. Where did white go wrong, do you think? Okay, well, after king e1, it was knight e4, and then white blundered knight df4, trying to achieve knight e6. But the problem is, well, knight gf6 with idea bishop f2, and knight g4 to guard the bishop so that you can take on d2. Yes, the game continued a3, bishop f2, king f1, knight g4. And in fact, white resigned here. If we look at the opening d takes c5, we can briefly analyze it again with an engine and see if we can suggest an improvement for both sides. After queen takes d5, Stockfish thinks it's equal, so black has equalized. Okay, d takes e5 is inaccurate. Supposedly take, knight c6. Yeah, this pawn is hanging, and if white doesn't hold on to it, then he will be a pawn down. If white manages to hold on to it, then he will have disadvantage in development. f4 doesn't develop a piece, so black can manage to get very active after bishop f5 and castle queenside and breaking open the center. Okay, rook c1 is where white started to go wrong, it looks like. Right, because of this knight d3, knight f2 idea. Yes. And then taking on e4, thus protecting the bishop. Yeah, looks much better for black. I would like to conclude this video by looking at the two main lines and observing a game for each one. The main lines will be d takes e5, and after d4, it's knight f3, knight c6, and the two main lines are a3 and g3. But actually, before I investigate those, let's investigate other moves. Knight bd2 is one move, and here black can choose between a speculative idea queen e7 and also knight ge7. After queen e7, black's idea is to initiate the trap of knight takes e5 and knight d3. For example, a3, knight takes c5. White doesn't see the threat knight d3, so he plays knight takes d4. Another colossal blunder because of checkmate. Instead, after knight takes e5, queen takes e5, knight f3, white probably holds an advantage, maybe small to significant. Black should play queen a5, bishop d2, and queen b6. And I think black is still in the game, black is playable, but white is calling the shots if he knows what he's doing. So instead of queen e7, you can also use knight ge7. It's more normal. After knight b3, typical, there's knight f5. Let's follow Morozevich here. a3 was played by Sokolov, bishop e7, g3, a5, queen d3, a4, knight bd2. By playing a5 and a4, he can maybe use the squares c5 and b3 in the future. h5, bishop h3. By gaining space on the queen side, it allows black to initiate operations on the other side of the board. g6 was played, knight e4, h4, bishop f4, take a g3, take, knight g7. So far, black's playing pretty calmly here. Bishop g2, black trades, trade, bishop f5, threatening, well, not threatening yet, but threatening to threaten pressure on e4. So knight fg5 was played. But after knight a5, queen f3, and knight e6, knight h7, black takes, take, c6, and white blunders e3 because of knight b3, rook d1, and what do you think black plays? Queen a5, of course. After king e2, knight c5, queen g2, queen a6. Other moves win. I think d3 is winning here as well, but queen a6 is a very strong idea. Preparing to capture on c4 next move, king f1, queen c4, and then queen c2. Black's winning, white is busted. Queen f3, d3, bishop g5, another mistake. Knight e4, strong idea, because you cannot take as d1 hangs. So, bishop e7, knight f2, strong. Queen f2, queen d1, king g2, queen c2, bishop d6, and now black castled, but it wasn't really necessary. d2 is even stronger. But after castle queenside, king g1, take, rook h8, white resigns as he cannot save either of these pieces at the same time. Okay, let's look at bishop d2. This was played in Sushkov and Afromev and Tula 2003. Bishop g4 is my recommendation, and the game move. Bishop g5, and now queen d7. Because black intends to use the bishop to go to b4 later, it was knight bd2, h6, bishop h4, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop b4, knight d2. You can already tell black's a little happier. Knight takes c5, queen b3, queen e6, threatening. If queen b4, then knight d3, and threatening on c4 maybe. Take, and knight d3. So, white can improve, of course. Okay, engine suggests castle queenside. Looks like a strange move. I guess the idea is to break the pin on d2. Okay, computer thinks it's equal after bishop e7. That's a hard move to find. But let's see. Maybe black can improve earlier. Yeah, queen e6 is not good. Better is bishop takes d2, flinging the king in the center. And now only then, yeah, knight f6. White should not take, probably, because the black king is much safer than the white king. Okay, let's see. Yeah, this is an older game, and there are many improvements for both sides. Okay, why don't we go and look at a3 and g3, and then we'll be done. a3, knight ge7, b4, knight g6. Okay, b5 is a mistake, because take, bishop c5, and now if bishop b2, then knight c4, and black's winning. Instead of b5, there's bishop b2 immediately, more normal. But after a5, you can look in Morozovich's games. He beat Voltasek. b5, take, and knight c4. He beat Wojciech in this line. If you don't know, Wojciech is Poland's #1 strongest chess player. So let's look at g3. So knight c6, g3. This is the main line for white nowadays. So bishop g4, bishop g2, queen d7 with idea bishop h3, castle, queenside, queen b3, a6. Interesting idea, kind of strange. I think the idea is to prevent queen b5, queen d5. Okay, bishop g5, and now bishop e7, take, rook d1, queen f5, knight bd2, knight g6, c5, white made a mistake here, d3. Not the best response, but it is very dangerous because white played the mistake e4. Better is e3. But after e4, there's queen h5, and the issue is there's severe pressure on f3 as the knight can go to d4 and e5. White even played h3, sacrificing a pawn to alleviate some pressure on f3. Because after rook ac1, you can play knight takes, and black is in great shape. So instead it was h3, take, knight g5, queen g4, knight takes f7, knight d4, queen c4, blunder. What's the best move? Or best idea? Well, okay, let's see. Knight e2. How about here? What did black play? White resigned after this move. It's a pretty move. Knight gf4. And white is busted completely because there's some problems such as queen h3, queen g2. And there's not really much white can do because after king e1, there is knight g2 check, king f1, knight d3, and if you take, then you're getting mated very shortly. Queen f3, excuse me, that would hang the queen, sorry. Let me think here. Yeah, just queen h3 probably, because let me think. Take probably, and then mate. Yes. Nothing that white can do. Okay, let's just go to the beginning. In conclusion, Albin Counter Gambit is a very crafty opening for black. Black's idea is to put a pawn on d4 and create some troubles for the white king. Very often the white king can be kind of exposed because black manages to activate his pieces very quickly and open lines. If white plays correctly with the mainline knight f3 and g3, white can accumulate a small positional advantage, although he is obliged to give back a pawn. But even then, black's position will always be playable, and Albin Counter Gambit is not refuted. I recommend Albin Counter Gambit to anybody that's looking to achieve a very quick win against d4 when they need to. In tournaments, you can use this. In classical chess, you can use this. The Albin especially makes a great blitz weapon. If you want to learn more about the Albin Counter Gambit, then I advise you to search games by Morizovic. You can find his games on chessgames.com, or you can also use a database like on Lichess or Mega.